My mother looked at the dinner my 17-year-old daughter had spent 10 hours cooking for 23 people, smiled, and sent one text that destroyed everything. Adults only. 45 seconds later, she told me I could bring the peach cobbler if I wanted. That was the moment I realized she had never forgotten my daughter. She had simply decided she did not belong at her own table. My name is Hadley Rowan, and that night I stopped begging for a seat in my mother's family. Instead, I built a different table, and before the weekend was over, 14 people made a choice that changed all of us forever. Chapter 1. The Dinner She Let My Daughter Cook. Before I married Miles Rowan, I was Hadley Whitlock, which meant I grew up learning that usefulness could look a lot like love if you did not examine it too closely. At 43, I owned Maple and Iron Diner in Ada, Michigan, a 54-seat breakfast place that opened at 5:30 every morning and closed at 2 in the afternoon. I had started there young, first carrying plates, then working prep, then running the line, and finally buying the place in May of 2018 after nearly 18 years of learning how to solve problems before anyone else noticed they existed. A server called in sick. I covered the section. A delivery showed up missing half the eggs. I found another supplier before the first customer ordered breakfast. The griddle stopped heating. I moved the ticket flow and kept the room from feeling the delay. A regular forgot his wallet. I wrote his name on a receipt and told him to bring it next Tuesday. My family worked the same way. They needed a meal planned, a room arranged, a gift purchased, or 2 relatives convinced to speak to each other again. They called me. In the Whitlock family, I was not the favorite. That was my older brother Grant, though no one used the word favorite because families prefer softer language for old habits. I was not the black sheep either. I was the caterer. One Thanksgiving, I spent 3 days making nearly everything on the table. Grant arrived 20 minutes late carrying 2 bottles of wine. My mother, Corinne, raised her glass and thanked him for always knowing how to make an occasion special. I was standing behind her with oven mitts on, holding the turkey. That was how it usually worked. When there was a wedding, graduation, memorial service, or anniversary, Corinne called me to ask about menus, chairs, tablecloths, and guest lists. She rarely asked whether I wanted to come, simply as her daughter. I had spent years pretending the distinction did not matter. Then there was my daughter, Wren. Wren Rowan was 17, a senior at Forest Hills Northern High School, and the only person I knew who could communicate an entire argument by the way she set down a spoon. She had worked weekends at Maple and Iron since June of 2023. Official payroll, time card, legal hours, no special treatment just because her mother owned the place. I made sure of that, partly because it was right, and partly because Wren hated the idea that anyone might think she had been handed a place on the line. She remembered how Miles liked his coffee before he asked. She packed sandwiches for me on inventory days. She kept notes on what our regulars ordered when they were celebrating and what they ordered when they were grieving. She noticed loose cabinet handles and replaced missing labels without announcing it. Marina Santos, our 52-year-old sous chef, noticed her too. Marina had spent 30 years in professional kitchens and did not give praise casually. One Saturday, after a packed breakfast rush, she watched Wren reorganize the pass after 2 tickets had been entered wrong. "You think in systems," Marina told her. Wren shrugged and said she had only moved 3 plates. Marina looked at me and said, "She thinks that makes her less impressive." Marina had been encouraging Wren to apply to the Sequia Institute for Culinary Education at Grand Rapids Community College for fall of 2026. Wren was not convinced she belonged there. She thought she was only allowed into our kitchen because I owned it. So when my mother's 70th birthday approached, Wren decided she would design and run the entire family dinner herself. It was supposed to be her first real service. For 18 days, she contacted every person on the 23-name guest list and asked the same question. What family dish makes you feel most loved? My Aunt Lorna chose chicken and dumplings. Grant chose pot roast. The younger children voted for baked macaroni and cheese with a crisp top. Wren added green beans the way my father Warren used to make them, with onions cooked slowly enough to disappear into the pan. She planned homemade buttermilk rolls and a peach cobbler based on a recipe my mother remembered from her own grandmother. The cobbler took 4 attempts. The first was too wet. The second had too much cinnamon. The third had the right filling, but the topping baked unevenly. After the 4th attempt, Wren took a picture and sent it to Corrine. My mother replied, "Looks fine." That was all. But it mattered because Corinne knew. She knew Wren was testing recipes. She knew this dinner was not a casual idea. Wren spent $365 of her own money on the main ingredients. She had saved it for 7 months from tips and babysitting. I offered to pay. She shook her head. "It is my present, Mom." I quietly covered another $152 for drinks, ice butter, table linens, and the extra supplies that appear whenever someone believes they have calculated everything. Then there were the place cards. Wren cut 23 pieces of cream paper and wrote every name in black ink. The children's cards received as much attention as the adults. Harper got a soccer ball. Owen got a dinosaur. Theo got a wooden spoon. There would be no children's table shoved into another room. Wren wanted one long table where everyone had a place. Corrine's card had a thin gold border because Wren wanted her grandmother to feel honored. I noticed Wren writing something on the back, but when I asked, she covered it with her hand. "Not yet," she said. 3 weeks before the dinner, I texted Corrine to confirm the plan. Saturday, October 18th, 6 o'clock, our house. Wren is cooking. She replied with one word, "Fine." A week before the party, I confirmed again, while Lorna and Grant were both present. Corinne nodded and asked whether the tablecloth would be white. She knew Wren was spending her savings. She knew this was the main gift. Still, there were small things I should have noticed. Vivian Carlisle, my mother's closest friend, mentioned Saturday evening during a phone call, then changed the subject when I asked what she meant. Corinne cared more about the lighting in our dining room than the menu. She asked whether the chairs matched. She scheduled a salon appointment for Saturday afternoon. Grant had been asked whether he and his wife Audrey were available for what Corinne called a small dinner. He later told me he assumed I knew about it. At the time, none of those details formed a pattern. They were just loose threads I was too busy to pull. On Saturday morning, Wren started at 6:15. She taped a timeline to the cabinet and counted backward from a 6 o'clock service. Painter's tape marked each station. Miles brought sheet pans, serving trays, and extra chairs from Maple and Iron. Marina and Janelle Brooks had adjusted the diner schedule so Wren could have the entire day. I stayed close enough to help and far enough away to let her lead. By 3:55, the dumplings were resting, the pot roast was tender, the macaroni was ready for its final bake, and the cobbler was cooling on the counter. 23 place cards waited on the table. Wren went upstairs to change into the dress she had bought for her grandmother's birthday. At 4:12, my phone lit up. Corinne had posted a message in the family group chat. "Change of plans. Vivian reserved the Magnolia room at Bella Vita. Dinner is at 7, adults only." 45 seconds later, she sent me a private message. "You can bring the cobbler if you want." I looked at 6 dishes, 23 chairs, and my mother's place card outlined in gold. Then I heard Wren's footsteps coming down the stairs. I did not know which would hurt more, the message on my phone or the moment my daughter realized her grandmother had known about her gift all along. Chapter 2. The sentence my daughter should never have learned. Wren reached the bottom step wearing the dark green dress she had bought with her own money, her phone still open in her hand. She did not ask whether the message was real. She looked at me, then at the table, then at the gold-edged place card waiting for Corinne. For a moment, I thought she might say something. Instead, she turned around and went back upstairs. Miles was still out picking up the last folding chairs, so the only sounds in the house were the refrigerator motor, the ticking wall clock, and the faint creak of Wren moving above me. My phone kept vibrating. Elise Bennett had sent me a private message asking what she was supposed to do with Harper Owen and Poppy. Cassidy Pierce sent a voice note before I could answer. There is no way I can find a trustworthy sitter for Theo and Mia with less than 2 hours' notice on a Saturday. Did Corinne seriously expect us to leave the kids home and come anyway? In the family chat, an older cousin wrote that it was Corinne's 70th birthday and we should let her have the evening she wanted. Vivian replied that the Magnolia Room had already been paid for. No one answered the obvious question. What were the families with children supposed to do? Corinne said nothing. That silence told me the children had not been accidentally overlooked. They had been removed. A few minutes later, Wren came downstairs again. The dress was gone. She wore gray sweatpants and one of Miles's old maple and iron t-shirts. Her hair, which she had curled and pinned back, now hung loose around her shoulders. She walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet beneath the counter, and pulled out a stack of clear food containers. I watched her divide the pot roast into portions. She pressed the lids down carefully, one corner at a time. Then she took a black marker and wrote on the first container, "Freeze half." On the next one, she wrote for Aunt Lorna. On another, use by Monday. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Preserving everything before it goes bad." Her voice was steady. Too steady. Wren stopped for a second. She kept writing. "The macaroni will freeze fine if we do it before the top gets soggy. The rolls can go in freezer bags. The dumplings should probably stay in the refrigerator." I stepped closer. "You do not have to take care of this right now." She looked at me then, and there was no anger in her face. That frightened me more than anger would have. "It is okay, Mom. I know how Grandma ranks things." Her eyes dropped back to the containers. Then she added, almost too quietly to hear, "I am used to it." Something inside me went still. Not the way people describe shock with ringing ears or shaking hands. This was quieter. It felt like hearing a door close somewhere deep inside a house and realizing it had been closing for years. I did not think first about the $365. I did not think about the 10 hours of work or the 23 place cards. I thought about my daughter trying to make her disappointment easier for me to carry. She was not crying because she had already decided her pain would inconvenience the adults around her. And I knew exactly where she had learned that. In 2016, Corinne missed Wren's recital because it fell on bridge night. Wren had been 8, standing backstage in silver shoes, scanning the audience before every song. I told her Grandma loved her in her own way. In 2018, Corinne moved Wren's 10th birthday lunch because it conflicted with a brunch reservation. Wren agreed without complaint. I told her flexibility was part of being in a family. In 2023, Wren placed second at a swim meet. Corinne and Grant both said they would come. Neither did. I sent pictures to the family chat and wrote that everyone was busy and Wren understood. I had spent years believing I was helping my daughter understand her grandmother. What I had really taught her was to doubt the moment she felt abandoned. I could not undo those days, but I could stop adding another one. My phone rang. Grant. I answered and walked into the dining room so Wren would not have to hear every word. "Hadley, do not turn this into a family war." I looked at the 23 place cards. I have not done anything. You know what I mean. Mom is 70. It is one dinner. Wren is 17. She will understand. That sentence sounded different now. She already understands too much. Grant sighed. Mom is not going to change. You are putting everyone in the middle. I ran my thumb along the edge of Corinne's card. Did you know the room only seated 12? He did not answer. Grant, Mom mentioned something small at Bella Vita. She said you knew or that she was going to tell you. When? I do not know. Earlier this week. Did you know Wren was still cooking for 23 people? No, of course not. But he had not asked. He had accepted that if Corinne had a plan, Hadley would handle whatever did not fit. You were not in the middle, Grant. You were already on the guest list. That is not fair. Neither is letting a 17-year-old cook all day for people who already knew they would not come. He lowered his voice. If you make this a confrontation, Mom is going to tell everyone you ruined her birthday. He said it like a weather warning, not a threat he intended to stop, just something I should prepare to absorb. What do you suggest I tell Ren? There was another pause. I am just saying, do not make a decision while you are upset. Then he ended the call without answering my question. Miles came home at 4:46, carrying the last folding chairs against his shoulder. He took one look at my face and set them down. What happened? I handed him the phone. He read the group message, then Corinne's private one. His jaw tightened, but his first response was the one people use when they want pain to become manageable. It is one dinner. Maybe we go stay an hour and deal with this tomorrow. I looked toward the kitchen. He followed my eyes. Ren was sealing the pot roast. Miles walked in and stood beside her. Why are you doing this alone? She kept her attention on the label. It was my service. I should close it down. Miles looked at me. The words hit him exactly as they had hit me. This was not a teenager being disappointed about a change of plans. This was our daughter treating her first real service like a failure she had caused. Miles pulled out a chair and sat beside her. I am sorry, he said. I should not have called it one dinner. Ren shrugged, but her hand stopped moving. Miles did not tell us what to do next. He asked, "What do you want us to do?" Ren looked at me and I realized I did not have an answer yet. I only knew what would happen if we went to Bella Vita. Ren would stay home. The food would be packed away. Corinne would sit beneath soft restaurant lighting and take pictures with the people she had chosen. Everyone would tell themselves the evening had worked out, and I would have fixed another one of my mother's decisions before she had to feel the weight of it. I took out my phone and texted Corinne, "Call me." She replied almost immediately, "Do not make this harder than it needs to be." At 5:02, my phone rang. I answered. Corinne did not ask whether Ren was all right. She did not ask how much food had been prepared. Her first words were calm and irritated. "Please tell me you are not calling to be dramatic." I looked through the kitchen doorway. Ren was placing the final container into the refrigerator. And I knew this would be the last time I called my mother, hoping she would offer us a fair solution. Chapter 3. I stopped asking for a seat. I kept my voice even. Ren spent 18 days planning this dinner. She used $365 of her own money. She has been cooking since 6:15 this morning, and there are 23 handwritten place cards on the table. Corinne exhaled as though I were reading her a grocery list she had already approved. I know she worked hard, Hadley. Then help me find a solution that does not leave her at home, while everyone celebrates the meal she was supposed to cook for you. There was a pause on the line. I could hear muffled voices behind her and the sharp hiss of aerosol hairspray. She was probably still at the salon. I offered the simplest option first. We can bring the food to Bella Vita and serve it family style in the Magnolia Room. That is not possible. Why not? Bella Vita does not allow outside food, Vivian already asked. That answer was reasonable. The fact that Vivian had already asked was not. I moved to the second option. Then keep dinner here tonight at 6 and let Vivian take you to Bella Vita tomorrow. No one loses the reservation, and Ren still gets to give you the birthday dinner she planned. Corinne made a small sound of disbelief. You expect my friends to sit in your dining room with casserole dishes and children running around after Vivian arranged a private room? The children were invited from the beginning. This is my 70th birthday. I am allowed to want one elegant evening. I looked into the kitchen. Ren had stopped packing containers, though she was pretending to examine a label. Our house is ready. The food is ready. Your granddaughter is ready. My friends are expecting something more formal than the meal Ren spent 7 months saving for Corinne's voice cooled. Your home is cozy, Hadley. That does not mean it is appropriate for every occasion. Cozy was one of my mother's most useful words. It could mean warm when she was speaking to guests. It meant small, ordinary, and not impressive enough when she was speaking to me. What happens to Ren? She can cook for everyone another time. This was the time you agreed to. I am not rearranging my 70th birthday around a teenager's project. The sentence was quiet. That made it worse. Corinne did not shout. She did not need to. She had spent decades learning how to reduce someone's work with a few carefully chosen words. I looked at Wren. Her face did not change, but I knew she had heard. She lowered her eyes and pressed another lid onto a container. "How long have you known about Bellavita?" Corinne hesitated. Vivian made the reservation as a surprise. "When, that is not important. When, Mom, last weekend." Nearly a week. Wren had tested the cobbler again on Monday. She had bought the roast on Wednesday. Corinne had called Thursday to ask whether I had enough matching chairs. You knew for days. I knew Vivian was considering it. You confirmed dinner here in front of Grant and Lorna. I did not want an argument before everything was settled. So you waited until Wren had finished cooking. I assumed you would handle it. There it was. Not solve it together. Not explain it to Wren. Handle it. The same way I handled extra guests missing chairs, hurt feelings, changed schedules, and every other inconvenience Corinne created without wanting to witness the consequences. "If you decide to come," she continued, "wear the blue dress. It photographs better than the black one." For a second, I could not speak. My daughter was standing beside nearly 10 hours of work, and my mother was still thinking about photographs. "I'm not promising that we will be there," Corinne's voice hardened. "Do not embarrass me over this. I am trying not to humiliate Wren. She is 17. She will recover." That was the problem. Everyone assumed Wren would recover because she always did it quietly. I need to talk to my daughter. "Hadley, I will let you know what we decide. You do not make a family decision by asking a teenager." I do when the family decision is what to do with her work. I ended the call before she could answer. At 5:14, a message appeared on my phone. "If you turn my birthday into a confrontation, Thanksgiving will be held without the Rowan family. I will not explain to everyone why my daughter chose to ruin my 70th birthday." I read it twice. Thanksgiving, reputation, belonging. Corinne had placed all three on the table like bargaining chips. This was not the first time she had done it. It was only the first time I understood exactly what she was buying with them. My silence, my cooperation, my daughter's willingness to pretend she was fine. I set the phone face down and walked into the dining room. 23 chairs waited around the long table. Cream paper cards marked every place. I picked up Corinne's gold-edged card. Something was written on the back. "Happy 71st from the sous chef who finally got her own service." I remembered Wren at 12 standing on a stool beside Marina at the diner, wearing an apron that reached her ankles. One day, I am going to cook Grandma's whole birthday dinner by myself. Corinne had smiled at the time and said she would believe it when she saw it. Wren had remembered that promise for 5 years. My mother had not simply canceled a meal. She had stepped on a dream my daughter had carried since middle school. I took the card into the kitchen. Wren was sealing the last container. "Before we put anything else away, I need to ask what you want." She looked at the phone in my hand. Grandma said no. I am not asking what Grandma wants. Wren leaned back against the counter. I told her the truth. If we still serve dinner, it might be just the 3 of us. Maybe 4 if Aunt Lorna comes. We could have more food than we know what to do with. Grant may blame us. Grandma may exclude us from Thanksgiving. The phone could ring all week. Wren glanced toward the dining room. "Are you really willing to miss her birthday?" "Not to hurt her. To stop hurting you." Her expression tightened. "I do not want you fighting with Grandma because of me. This is not because you made me fight. This is because I kept asking you to accept things I should have challenged." She was silent for several seconds. "What if nobody comes?" "Then your father and I will sit down at 6 and we will eat the food while it is hot." "What if it is only 4 people?" "Then 4 people get the best dinner in Ada." A faint smile touched one side of her mouth. "If it is 4 people, I am still plating in courses." Miles stood near the sink listening. He nodded once. "Then tell me what needs reheating." Wren looked at the containers she had just packed. "Pot roast first." Macaroni goes back in at 5:35. Rolls at 5:45. Her voice changed as she spoke. Not healed, focused. She was running a service again. I sent Corinne one final private message. I love you, and I hope you have a happy birthday. We will not come to Bella Vita if Ren is expected to stay home after cooking your dinner. Your chair is still here. I will not keep choosing between being your daughter and being her mother. Corinne read it. She did not respond. At 5:34, I opened the family chat. I attached a photograph of the table with all 23 place cards. Then I attached a photograph of the peach cobbler cooling on the counter. Dinner is still at 6 at our house. Ren cooked the recipes each of you gave her. Every person originally invited still has a place here, children included. I sent it before I could soften the language or add an apology. Miles turned his phone face down. Ren removed the pot roast from the refrigerator. At 5:42, no one had answered. At 5:49, a car slowed in front of our house, then continued down the street. At 5:54, Corinne posted that dinner at Bella Vita would still begin at 7. No one replied to her either. At 5:57, Ren stood behind the pass in her maple and iron apron, checking the serving plates for the third time. She kept looking toward the front window. I began preparing myself for the possibility that the 23 cards would remain untouched. At 5:58, the doorbell rang. Miles looked at me. Ren stopped moving. I walked toward the door, not knowing whether the person waiting outside had come to eat dinner or to tell me to stop defying my mother. Chapter 4. The Table They Chose. Elise Bennett stood on the porch with Daniel beside her and all 3 children crowded between them. Harper held a paper bag against her chest. Owen was trying to peek around his mother into the dining room. Poppy had one shoe half off and a stuffed rabbit tucked beneath her arm. Elise lifted the bag. I brought rolls. We already have rolls. I know. I did not want to come empty-handed. She looked past me toward the table, then lowered her voice. The other invitation did not include my children, so it did not include me. Something in my chest loosened. Before I could answer, headlights turned into the driveway behind them. Nolan climbed out first, then Cassidy, with baby Mia on one hip, and Theo holding her free hand. Nolan looked uncomfortable before he even reached the porch. I spent almost an hour deciding whether coming here would make things worse. Cassidy adjusted Mia's blanket. I decided I did not want Theo learning that he counts as family only when he is convenient. Theo looked up at her. Am I convenient tonight? She smiled. Not especially. He seemed satisfied with that answer. At exactly 6, Lorna arrived carrying her purse and no food at all. She stepped inside, took off her coat, rolled up her sleeves, and said she assumed someone would need help with dishes later. That made 14 of us. Miles, Ren, and me, Lorna, Elise, Daniel, Harper, Owen, and Poppy, Nolan, Cassidy, Theo, and Mia. No one else came. I left Corinne's place card where Ren had put it. The gold border caught the light each time someone moved around the table. Ren glanced toward the front window whenever headlights passed outside. She did not say she was waiting for her grandmother, but she kept checking the time. Boundaries did not erase love. That was the part no one warned you about. You could know someone had hurt you and still hope they walked through the door. At 6:12, Ren tied her maple and iron apron around her waist and stood behind the pass. Her hands shook once when she lifted the first serving bowl. Then she steadied them. We are starting with chicken and dumplings. Theo whispered loudly to Owen. She sounds like a real chef. Ren heard him. The corner of her mouth lifted. She placed the first bowl in front of Lorna. Lorna took one bite and stopped chewing. For a second, Ren looked terrified. Then Lorna closed her eyes. You used sage. A little. And you rested the dough before cutting it, Ren nodded. My mother used to do that. Everyone else rushes the dumplings, and they fall apart. She took another bite. These did not. Ren's shoulders lowered. It was not a vague compliment. Lorna had recognized the work. The baked macaroni came next with the crisp top the children had requested. Harper asked for seconds before Ren finished serving the first round. Theo carried the basket of buttermilk rolls to the table with both hands. Chef Wren said, "These go in the middle." One tray had baked darker than the others. Wren stared at it as if the brown edges might expose her as a fraud. Marina had taught her that a service could contain one imperfect pan without becoming an imperfect service. Wren placed the better rolls on top and sent the basket out. No one complained. Owen lifted his juice box. To Chef Wren, Harper raised hers. Theo joined them. Even Poppy lifted an empty plastic cup because she did not like being excluded from anything. The adults followed with water and iced tea. Wren stood behind the pass, trying not to smile too widely. I moved toward the kitchen to refill the water pitcher. Lorna caught my wrist. "Sit down. I just need to check the green beans. Miles is checking them." I looked toward the sink. Miles was washing a roasting pan. Daniel was moving empty dishes from the counter. Cassidy was pouring drinks. Elise was cutting Poppy's food into smaller pieces. No one was waiting for me to notice what needed doing. For years, I had believed a family meal would collapse if I sat down too soon. That night, I lowered myself into a chair while the pot roast was still hot. The first bite almost made me cry. Not because it was extraordinary, though it was good, because I was eating with everyone else instead of watching them eat. Wren had built a table where I was allowed to belong too. After the main course, she sat beside Lorna for a moment. I was going to use this dinner for my culinary school application. Lorna glanced around the table. "You should. But I planned for 23, and you served 14. That is not the same thing." "No, it is harder." Wren looked at her. Lorna pointed toward the kitchen. "You adjusted, portions, changed timing, reheated without drying anything out, and kept serving after the plan changed. That sounds like something a school should know." Miles pulled out his phone. "We have pictures of the timeline. I can photograph the plates before dessert." Wren hesitated. "I would have to say I served 14. You should say exactly that I told her. Planned for 23, adapted and served 14. Her expression changed slightly. The dinner had not become the service she imagined. It had become proof she could run one anyway. At 8:30, Lorna's phone buzzed. She read the message and did not react at first. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "It is, Audrey." She turned the screen toward me. Audrey said there were about 10 people in the Magnolia room. One guest had canceled because of a cold. Another had decided not to attend after learning the children had been removed from the plan at the last minute. The room was beautiful. The service was polished. Corinne had checked her phone through most of the first course. Grant had barely spoken. Several of the Bridge Club guests had asked where the grandchildren were. I did not read the message aloud. I did not want our dinner to become a celebration of theirs feeling uncomfortable. Corinne had received the private room, the white tablecloths, the flattering light, and the adult atmosphere she wanted. What she did not have was any control over how the room felt once the doors closed. When Wren finally brought out the peach cobbler, she paused at Corinne's empty place. Should I wait another 10 minutes? I knew why she was asking. "No," I said gently. "Serve it while it is warm." She nodded. Elise posted a picture of the cobbler in the family chat after nearly half of it had disappeared. Cassidy posted the children holding up their juice boxes. Lorna added a photograph of Wren standing at the pass with her apron tied tight and a serving spoon in her hand. No captions blamed Corinne. No one mentioned Bellavita. The pictures were enough. Corinne did not respond. By the time the last guests left, Wren had fallen asleep on the couch, with one sock missing and her head against the armrest. Miles touched her shoulder. "Come on, Chef. Bed." She opened her eyes long enough to lean against him as he guided her upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen. The house was finally quiet. I put one hand on the counter and started crying. Miles came back down and stood beside me. "We had 14 people," he said softly. "That is not why." "I know." I looked toward the refrigerator where the containers Wren had labeled earlier were still stacked. She said she was used to it. Miles lowered his head. I thought staying neutral kept things calm. It kept things easy for the person causing the problem. He nodded. "You should not have to handle your family alone anymore. Lorna was still drying the last pot. She set it on the counter. "There's something you should know about your mother. She told me Corinne married my father Warren in June of 1979. That Thanksgiving, my grandmother Beatrice made Corinne eat in the kitchen. Being married to family did not make her family," Beatrice had said. The same thing happened at Christmas and Easter. Corinne was allowed to cook, carry plates, and clear the table, but not sit with the people she served. Then Grant was born in March of 1981. At the next family gathering, Beatrice finally gave Corinne a chair at the main table. Lorna said Corinne had once held baby Grant and joked that he had earned her a seat. The joke had stayed with her. So had the lesson. My mother had learned that belonging came through rank. Instead of destroying that system when she gained power, she had moved to the top of it. For the first time, I could picture Corinne at 24, eating alone in a kitchen while everyone else laughed in the next room. I felt sorry for that woman, but sympathy did not change what she had done to Wren. "My daughter does not owe payment on a wound that existed before she was born." Lorna nodded. Before leaving, she cut one portion of cobbler and placed it in a container. I assumed she was taking it home. I did not learn until later that she drove to Corinne's house and left it outside the door with a note. "You should know what you refused." The next morning, Miles went alone to return the sheet pans to Maple and Iron. Wren sat on the back steps with a book and a blanket around her shoulders. At 8:43, the doorbell rang. Through the frosted glass, I recognized my mother. For the first time in my life, Corinne did not reach for the handle and let herself in. She stood outside holding a paper bag with both hands. I set down my coffee and walked toward the door, not knowing whether she had come to repair what she had broken or simply to repair the story other people were telling about her. Chapter 5. The Door She Had to Wait At. I did not open the door right away. Not because I wanted Corinne to wait as punishment. I needed a few seconds to keep myself from doing what I had always done. Open the door, take her coat, make tea, find a way to soften whatever she had come to say. I turned toward the kitchen and saw that I had already placed 2 mugs beside the kettle. The habit of taking care of her had moved faster than my anger. I put 1 mug back in the cabinet, then opened the door. Corinne stood in the same clothes she had worn to Bella Vita, though the jacket was folded over one arm. Her makeup had been removed, and the careful style from the salon had started to fall around her face. She did not reach for the handle or step past me. She waited until I moved aside. Her eyes went immediately to the dining room. The table was still extended, and the place cards had not been cleared away. Her gold-edged card remained beside the empty chair. Corinne held up the paper bag. "We need to straighten this out." I closed the door behind her. What exactly needs straightening out? The photographs made everything look worse than it was. 2 women from Bridge have already asked why the grandchildren were not at Bella Vita. Vivian is humiliated. There it was. Not Wren is hurt. Not I made a mistake. Vivian is humiliated. Corinne lowered her voice. "You need to send a message saying there were 2 birthday celebrations. Tell everyone there was confusion about the schedule and that both dinners were lovely. That is not what happened. No one needs every private detail. You announced the change to 23 people. It stopped being private when you did that." Her mouth tightened. "You divided the family on my 70th birthday." I opened the same door to everyone who had already been invited. They chose where they felt welcome. You knew people would take that message as a challenge. I knew my daughter had spent nearly 10 hours cooking a meal you had already decided not to attend. Corinne looked toward the backyard. "Wren is young. She will move past it. She spent $365 because she wanted you to feel loved. This was my birthday, Hadley. I should have been allowed to choose how it looked. And Wren should have been allowed to know her dinner had been canceled before she finished cooking it." Corinne crossed her arms. "Fine. At Thanksgiving, Wren can sit at the main table." For a moment, I could only stare at her. She believed she was offering a promotion. This is not about giving Wren a better chair. Then what is it about? No one should have to earn the right to be treated like family. There will not be a main table, a side table, or a children's table in my house anymore. Vivian arranged something generous. Bella Vita would not allow outside food. Vivian did not make you hide the plan for 4 days. She did not make you keep confirming dinner here. She did not call Wren's work a teenager's project. Corinne's expression shifted. For the first time since she entered, she looked less angry than uncertain. Then what do you want from me? I do not need you to post anything. I do not need a new Thanksgiving plan. I do not need you to give Wren a special seat. I pointed toward the backyard. You need to speak to her. Corinne looked through the glass door. Wren was sitting on the back step beneath a blanket, her book open across her knees. What am I supposed to say? Tell her you knew how hard she worked. Tell her calling it a teenager's project was wrong. Tell her excluding the person who cooked the meal was wrong. I paused. Do not blame Vivian. Do not ask Wren to make you feel better. She does not owe you immediate forgiveness. Corinne looked down at the paper bag. Then she walked outside. From the kitchen window, I watched her cross the patio. The bag contained the cobbler Lorna had left at her door and a silver fork from Corinne's best flatware. There was an empty chair beside Wren. Corinne did not take it. She lowered herself onto the concrete step. Wren closed her book, but did not stand. I could not hear every word through the glass. I did not need to. I saw Corinne open the container. I saw her say something that made Wren look directly at her. Later, Wren told me the 3 things that mattered. Corinne admitted she knew how much work the dinner required. She said she should not have called it a teenager's project. She said it was wrong to invite everyone except the girl who had cooked for them. She did not say everything perfectly. She stopped twice, almost defended herself, then seemed to remember why she was there. Wren did not hug her. She did not tell her it was fine. Corinne ate every bite of the cold cobbler. Only after the container was empty did Wren come inside and retrieve the handwritten menu. She sat beside her grandmother and explained each dish. Corinne asked why the dumplings had tasted like her mother's. Wren told her about the sage the rested dough and Lorna's instructions. That specific question mattered more than a general compliment would have. It meant Corinne had finally looked closely enough to notice. Before leaving, Corinne stopped beside me. The seasoning was right. No one has made them that way in years. It was not a complete apology to me. I did not turn it into one. Wren needs time. Corinne nodded. The boundaries are not changing. Another nod. Then she left without demanding that Thanksgiving be restored or the family chat corrected. Later that afternoon, Grant texted me. You actually did it. I asked what he meant. He called instead. He admitted that he had known about the small dinner at Bella Vita. He believed Corinne had told me, but he had never checked because asking questions might have made her angry with him. Lorna told me what happened when Mom married Dad, he said, about her eating in the kitchen, about me earning her a chair. You did not create that system. No, but I benefited from it, and I let you be the one who challenged her because it was easier for me. It was not a full transformation. Grant did not suddenly become courageous or selfless, but it was the first time he named what his neutrality had cost someone else. You need to talk to Mom yourself, I told him. I am not carrying messages between you anymore. Vivian later described the entire weekend to her bridge club as an unfortunate scheduling misunderstanding. I did not correct her. I had spent too many years trying to control every version of the family story. She could tell hers. We would live ours. On November 2nd, we extended the table again. We called it Wren's Open Table. It happened on the first Sunday of each month. There was no head chair. Children and adults received the same place cards. Every family brought a dish or accepted a task. No one became the automatic cook, server, or cleaner. If someone could not attend, dinner still happened. Corinne came to the first one. Her card simply said, Grandma, written in the same ink as everyone else's. She sat in the middle of the table. At the end of the evening, I saw her slip the card into her purse when she thought no one was watching. She missed the December dinner for a bridge tournament. She did not ask us to move it. We served on time. The room did not spend the evening discussing her absence. For the first time, Corinne no longer controlled the emotional weather of our house. Marina reviewed Wren's photographs notes and original timeline. Her recommendation letter explained that Wren had planned for 23 guests, adapted less than 2 hours before service, and successfully served 14 without losing control of the kitchen. On December 15th, Wren submitted her application to the Sekia Institute. Her essay began with a dinner prepared for 23 people and served to 14. She wrote that hospitality was not about creating the most exclusive room. It was about making sure no person was treated like something that could be left behind. We did not receive an acceptance letter immediately. That was not the point. Wren pressed the submit button without asking whether she belonged there. I changed too. At Maple and Iron, Janelle told me something she had probably been trying to say for years. You do not ask for help. You make help unnecessary by doing everything first. This time, I listened. Janelle took over the weekly schedule. Marina managed prep inventory. I stopped opening and closing the diner every day. At home, I stopped organizing every holiday by myself. Miles took responsibility for setup and cleanup without waiting for instructions. Grant spoke directly to Corinne. I stopped being the translator. At one of our later Sunday dinners, Wren stood beside me at the pass while everyone listened to her explain the peach cobbler. Afterward, she looked across the table and said something quietly. I am not used to people listening. Yet. Good, I told her. Never get used to being ignored. The cobbler went out on time. Corinne might be there, or she might not. The table remained full. I no longer stood in the kitchen watching everyone else eat. I sat beside my daughter while the dessert was still warm. I did not save one dinner. I did not defeat my mother by humiliating her. I stopped Wren from carrying the words, I am used to it, into every friendship, workplace, and relationship that came after us. I stopped asking for a better chair at Corinne's table. I built one where no one had to prove they deserved to belong. Have you ever spent years trying to earn a better seat at someone else's table before realizing you could build your own? And if you could save one chair, who would you keep it for? Share your answer below and stay with us for more stories about boundaries, justice, and women who finally stopped asking permission to be respected.